and welcome back to another episode of Generation Sports Fantasy Edition. Let's kick it. That's right. We are never going to stop trying to get out here and get this information to everybody. I'm your boy, the monster on the mic. I also have with me today my co-host. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
What's going on, guys? Look, putting my mouth here in the microphone like this. I need to work on this. But yeah, Terry over here, the new Terry, the old Terry, the bad Terry, the good Terry. Still trying to find the name that I want to go with.
So we were actually talking about this earlier today for a little bit, and I kind of came up with something, and you guys can add the comments down below and tell me if you agree with it. I feel like Terry sometimes is there, and that's the polite and the good, the good guy, and says nice things. And then you have Barry over there, which is his alter ego, who is just absolutely doesn't give a fuck about anything anymore. He will sit there and he literally. I thought this morning when you sent that text, I was like, oh wait, is this going to be a Barry or a Terry? Is it going to be like, I'm not doing any trades because all of you guys suck. You give horrible trade offers, and I don't want any part of your stupid offers, you idiots. And then, instead we got Terry coming out and being like, I'm just going to wait until Jason does something, basically. But,
I did not say that.
All right, so what we're doing, go ahead. I think what we're going to do today, we were talking about is we just want to talk about the draft order and positions and how that all panned out. What do we think? Who we think won it? Who we think maybe have lost it? Now, obviously, nothing matters now because there's going to be trades and everything else, but still, it's going to be fun to debate a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to throw up the draft board in the order. All right, so for those of you, if you're not watching on YouTube, which I don't know why you aren't, first pick went to Sheck Monster, aka the monster on the mic. Pick 2 went to Manny. Pick 3 to Derek. Pick 4 to Bobby. Pick 5 to Gary. Pick 6 to Izzy. Pick 7 to Kenny. Pick 8 to Chris. Pick 9 to Filter. Pick 10 to Zoe. Pick 11 to Terry, who's right here with us. And pick number 12 went to AJ. So my question for you is, who do you think won the day?
Oh man, I mean, without getting into any, thoughts of what I think about what happened yesterday, I think you.
And excuse me, and by that, what do you go ahead? This is a freedom of speech. Oh wait, no, it's not because those are anti-Semitic. Those chats. But on our format, I want us to feel like we can talk about anything. Unlike people who start chats without people, because
that was at the beginning. We'll leave that backstory for another day. But
go ahead. What's your complaining about? Why do you say there's a caveat there?
Yeah, I think the number one pick, this draft, like every year, of course, the number one pick, it's always, to me, the safest play. Now that doesn't mean that you are getting the best player, but essentially, So I think, whoever got the number one pick, it's like that. I think the way they went down yesterday is where it gets interesting. I think a lot of people miss that whole, remember when the little paper went to the side, and then you kind of came up like, oh, people are going to think I'm cheating. Oh, no. And then, bam, like, hey, I'm not saying anything. I didn't think that you did this on purpose or anything. It was just...
I will say this. When you put those things in that nature, I guess I can understand the skepticism, but that's why I made sure everything was on camera, everything was seen. I wasn't even looking at it. By the way, I will be posting that video after this show, after we record this show, so that way the people who do watch this can refer to that video and see that there was no tomfoolery, there was no shenanigans. It was just
the video shows your face.
Yeah, but it can see the angle of the hats. I'm not like looking directly at the stuff. I'm shaking it and I'm moving it.
Well, for what I saw in my video, it was cut off like right here. So
I can't help that. If I'm, like if you want to see down here some of this, did you want me to do it like this? Like,
no. But watch this real quick, okay? Look, don't worry, don't see it, right? I'm peeking out of a hat, right? That's what we picture, right? But because we couldn't see your eye, it looked more like this.
I mean, take it for what it is. Listen, I can't control it. The one caveat I always put out there, though, is name the last time, at least in our league, the Golden Goose League, name the last time that the number one overall pick won the league.
You're right. I mean, I'm not. Again, I don't think that the draft order.
I'll be
it's
honest. If I had my choice, if I could pick, if I got to cheat to pick where I was going to be, I'd be in the 12th spot. That to me is like I like that position better than I like the number one.
Just go to AJ and say I trade you.
And not only that, but you talk about this whole thing about the player, right? Well, the last couple years, that number one overall player, or the last few years, the number one overall player hasn't made it through a season. So if anything, it's kind of shitty. You know what I'm saying? Because it's a risk, no matter who it is. I feel like
it's fine. I don't think that.
Let's move on. All right. So let's ask you this then. So we get out of that topic and get into this. Who do you think is in the worst? Like, what position in this draft are you not wanting to be a part of? And maybe it's because of the people in front of you or the people behind you, right? But who do you think is? And I'll put the draft board back up or the draft list back up. But who do you think then is in the worst position as of right now?
I mean, I think that I think this happened last year too. Fielder, Zoe, and myself back to back. And I for AJ's purpose, I don't even know if this is going to stay like that, of course, because of the amount of plays that are probably coming. But I would not want to be, AJ, at least on the first round, third round, every time that you have players snatching, because it doesn't mean that these guys are better by any means at all. But we do draft somewhat similar. So, to me, that's kind of tough. I think the one on the best spot, it right now, it's Gary. I mean, coming, from Manny, Derek, and Bobby, which are guys that we have no clue what kind of, research, what kind of nothing. Like, I have really no idea what these guys do. So for Gary, to me, he's literally like up in there as to who's going to be available for him, at that point. Because you got some drafts where you got receivers going, you got some drafts where there's running backs going.
Yeah.
So, pretty rough.
Well, I agree with you about the Gary thing because Gary does try to put in work and he looks at names that not necessarily those guys around drafting around him are going to look at. So there could be some players that he wants that are, could end up to him just because if he was, let's say hypothetically where Zoe is, right? You put Gary where Zoe is, and now some of those players that he thinks he wants, well, there's a chance some of the people around him may be eyeing those same people because they have that similarity. I was talking to Filter earlier today about the draft order, and the one thing he mentioned, this year's going to be a lot tougher than the last 2 years to get trades started and get things going. Now, once they get going, it may ease up the trade market, but the problem is if you look at it, and he's right, you're talking about who trades a lot last year, right? Who did a lot of trades? You had AJ, you had Zoe, you had Filter, and you had me. Right, we were and I wasn't trading near as much as you other four, but you got four people right next to each other, so it's like it's very hard to make those trade moves when you're talking about right next to each other. Not saying it can't be done, but it just makes it a little bit more difficult because the Mannies doesn't really trade much. Bobby doesn't really trade at all. Gary does. Don't get me wrong, you know what I mean. But Derek, man, you know what I mean. Like these people, Derek doesn't trade. There's not a whole lot of movement if people are trying to move up. Because I don't know if those people are willing to move back.
Yeah, that's the key right there. And I was about to say that, the moving back part. You know what I mean? Like for somebody to let go the 3, 4, or 5 pick to move back to the 9, to the 12, there's got to be something else in there. That will be the tough one. But yeah, I don't know, man. It's as far as like draft, like draft order in general, like after doing a few drafts, I think being on that. It seems to me like it's always like this, but I think the 7, 8, and 9, are those just spots that I don't want to be in. Those are 3 spots that like, So
last year I was in this league I was like 7 or something like that, and the year before that I was like 8 or something like that, and like it is hard drafting even with trades. And now don't get me wrong, I made I did have a typical meltdown because it was just too long of a time to trade period, and I had a couple meltdown trades that really probably fucked me over because I was in a much better position. But you start to just get that boredness and anticipate, and sometimes you make 1 or 2 more trades than I probably should have. But yeah, it's not easy coming from those middle spots, especially this year. I don't know what it is, but I mean, those are going to be some tough sleddings.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, I mean, and then as far as like the positions, I think the draft yesterday, I'm one of the people that were very, very eager to do this draft order, where Easy,
So
Zoe, at the beginning it was just them two pretty quickly, right? I think
yeah,
Easy, one of the first ones that came out. What did Easy have? 6, 7, like something like that, and then
Izzy was the first name pulled
there you
out of
go.
the
Yeah,
hat,
I was
and he
at the
got
door.
spot number 6.
Talk about like, hey, here you go. You're asking for it. And 6, I don't think is about spot. You're kind of like in the middle. You have to wait the same amount of time. So I think you kind of get a perspective of what's going on in the draft. Because you're always in the middle, right? You're somewhat like in between players. So I don't like that. I don't mind that position. To be in there because you don't wait that long to be able to make a decision. And sometimes when you're drafting, you have to wait longer than others, man. And you start seeing players come off the board. You start panicking. And then you start seeing that, and then maybe you say, man, I got my 2 picks coming up. I'm just gonna have to reach because I don't want to wait the whole time. And when you're in that position 6, it's just kind of like easy, right? Just wait for those 12 players, then you pick again and pick again. So I don't know. I like that a lot. So
Yeah, I mean the middle spots, the 6 isn't too bad because I think you're still not, you still can get a top tier player, in the league in that 6th spot, and then coming back around, there's still really good players. So yeah, I think once you get to the 7 and 8s, it's just like I think there's that teardrop. So your first round pick, you got to start strategizing more because it now has to tie into your second round pick more and what you're going to do. Like for instance, first overall, which is what I got, like, I mean, there's really no strategy I can have going until I get to the end of the second, right? Like I'm going to make who I'm going to make a pick of in the front. That's no choice, right? I mean, let's be honest, it's going to be a running back, right? For instance, so that's already been taken out of the equation. But coming back around, there's no, I like for me, I'm just starting to do a couple mock drafts, but there's no way I can have a plan because you just don't know who's there. Because for instance, there could be a stud receiver. So I'm like, okay, now I have to maybe get a receiver or whatever reason, maybe receivers will run on a run. So it's like, there's a stud running back. So now I have to go running back because it's like, it'd be stupid not to get that person. Right. So it's like, those are the types of questions and things that are tough. I think when you're in the middle, you have a better general idea of what could be there. So you could have in your mind, okay, maybe I want to go and I'm going to do no running back, right? I'm going to go wide receiver heavy in the beginning, or I'm going to go running back heavy in the beginning, or you know what? I want to get that early tight end because there's an opportunity I can do that. You have a better idea of how you're going to do things. I think once you get to a certain area, it's really hard to kind of judge what you're going to do because you just don't know what's going to happen in front of you.
Yeah, and that's why I think this year, because of those players that are at the 3, even number 2. I mean, I kind of even at 3, 4, 5. There this year specifically. I mean, there are some players right there that usually people will wait, to get right. Normally, we're looking at like at least 5 to 6 running backs. They come off the board every single year, and there's a lot of people talking about receivers, and we just don't know if that's how this guy's gonna go because of the type of league that we're in. So that to me would be interesting. That's when I talk about Gary being on the 5 spot, and then figuring out what is he gonna do. And Gary doesn't like that. Gary wants to know. Gary wants to know. So I don't know if he'll stay there. Before the draft, I don't know if he'll keep that 5th spot. So, but I think knowing those 2 players ahead of me, because I really don't think Bobby and D will move. Out of that spot. Manny, it really depends. I don't know if he's sold. We're not mentioning any players right now specifically, but
we'll get that on another show.
Yeah, we'll get that. But either way, and then as far as like having Zoe filter pick, filter me and AJ. I mean that's gonna be interesting. Because I really have no idea. So far, as to what's gonna happen. I mean, I kind of have an idea of who I want. But that could change very, very quickly.
Well, it's kind of funny because honestly, with the way the draft order is positioned, I would, and I know it's not going to happen, and it's just one of those things. Though I would love to see what it would look like if we didn't do any trades. Because I think what you're talking about with you guys being bunched up, I think it matters now because there's no trades. If Filter trades that first round pick like he's trying to do already, forget about it. It's all it starts to already unravel that. Where you guys are isn't going to factor in as much probably, right?
Yeah.
But I think it'd makes for such an interesting storyline to see how that bunch up what happens in the draft? Do you guys like just vulture each other to the point that none of your teams are going to look as great, or is it somebody who's going to get the advantage because they're just going to be always the able to be that step ahead? Like, it would just be a more interesting dynamic if nobody traded. But so like, yes, right now I agree, but I think once trades start happening, that whole thing isn't going to look the same. And I think before you know it, you're going to be like, oh, well, actually, I'm not having to draft around all these people.
Yeah, and you know, and plus like this year, you know, I don't know if Filter is thinking this or not, but I mean, those first round picks are valuable, but I don't know, man. There's just so many players out there, you know, and I'm not saying that this is the reason that Filter is trying to move to the second round, but to me, you know, having that, you know, nice spot, you know, trying to figure out who you're going to pick, you know, there's not like a consensus player. Like, it's actually like bam, bam, bam. You got to take those 5 guys no matter what. You know, I mean, and I've seen some, you know,
well, I disagree. I think if we right now we sat down and we talked, we could easily come up with 12 players that absolutely 100% should go in the first round. I think we could do that easy.
We can 100% do that. But the difference, what I'm talking about is how you have, for example, like, and just throw a name out there, like Cooper Kupp going ahead of Derrick Henry, right? Like,
in some areas,
you know,
I get
in
it.
some areas, like, so that guy, that's happening. So then, you know, in our league, right, we have that 0.25 carry, you know, 0.25 points that we get. So I don't know if that's the case. So to me, it's like, you know, I don't know if Filter is sold on any of those players, or you know, that's the reason he's trying to move out of that first round. But I feel like,
it's hard for me to believe that somebody wouldn't be sold on those players. Like, if we're talking about the top 10 players, that like, there's no, I mean, other than Christian McCaffrey, who probably still falls in that category, I don't know how you're not sold on any of the other ones. Like, I mean, who are you going to tell me in the top 10 that you're afraid of drafting right now? Like, this, not last year. Last year, I would say you're right. Okay. But this year, if we go over the top 10 players on a draft order by any position, you throw them in there, I don't see any other than Christian McCaffrey. I see no concerns about any of the top 10 players. I'd be happy drafting any of them.
So you don't have any concerns with Eckler?
I don't know. I'm not 100% if I'd have Eckler in my top 10.
No, he is.
Well, no, I mean, we're talking about what I see as top 10.
Right, but we're talking about, it's just, and that's the thing, right? Whenever we come out with our
but that's my 10, point, is it's not running backs. We're not talking running backs, right? So we're talking about players, right? So where do you have Eckler ranked? I mean, I know we're getting into something that we should.
I know. But
where do you have Eckler ranked in running backs?
There's people that have Eckler number 3. You know,
okay, there's people, but where do you rank him?
I mean, you know, to me, I won't pick him until after the 7-8 spot. But
so no, I said running back, not spot. So you're talking about he's the 7th or 8th running back?
Oh, no. After the receivers, I mean, running backs, I will say he's probably, you know, I will say top 5, 6.
Okay, because that's what I say, 5 or 6. That's my point. So if you put him at 5 or 6, and we know for a fact, so let's say we put him at 6 for argument's sake, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So would you agree there's 4 running backs that, you know, that would be a top 10 pick guaranteed, or should be?
Top 4?
There's 4 running backs that would be a top 10 pick guaranteed.
Eckler will be one of them.
No, we're not. Eckler's not, because he's number 6. So
no,
we got 5.
Number 6 as far as like if you're including the receivers.
No, that's my point. You got to listen to me, Terry, when I talk to you, bro. You said he would pick him at pick 7 or 8. I said, I don't care about draft position. Where do you rank him as a running back category, right? So who are your top 5? You put him in your top 5 running backs?
Yeah, top 5, 6 running backs.
That's okay. You said top 5 or 6. See,
right.
And then I said, okay, let's say he's number 6 on the list.
Okay.
So there's 5 running backs. 4 of them will be drafted in the top 10. That won't be Eckler then, because Eckler you said is number 6.
No, but that's
even if he's number 5, there's still 4
that's the
running
confusion.
backs.
I was talking about top 5, 6 as far as where I will draft him. You know,
I just said to you just running backs.
I got you.
You said 5 or 6.
Yeah.
So where do you rank him in? There are things called running back rankings. Where is he on your running back rankings?
I think on my running back, he's top 5 for sure.
Okay, so, but so let's say, okay, so we'll say there's 5, but we're still only taking 4. So he's not in it.
Okay.
So there's 4 other running backs that we're going to draft before him. They're going to get drafted in the top 10. Right?
Sure.
Okay, so that's 4 spots already. Mm-hmm. Then we know for a fact there's 3 receivers guaranteed that should be drafted in the top 10, if you ask me, right?
Okay.
Right, so that's already 8. Okay, let's throw in, just for shits and giggles, a tight end. Okay. Right, so let's throw Kelsey in there with the removing of Hill. People may be higher on him, so that's already 9.
Okay.
Right, so now depending on what players we pick, right? Because the 3 I'm talking about for receivers, you could add a 4th in there very easy, and that gets you to 10. So you could do 4 running backs, 4 receivers, and a tight end, and then Eckler's knocked out until 11 or 12.
Yeah, but you're right. I get that, but I think that's how it was last year. I don't think this year is that way. I think Eckler right now, he is being put right behind McCaffrey. And that's where my thing comes, is that if you're looking at consensus rankings, right, across the board on every single platform, there are a lot of people that have, getting into the top 3 players, right? Let's just say, Colts running back, right? McCaffrey and Eckler. So my point with all of these was that because of those.
Okay, go ahead.
No, because of that part, right? Where in my mind, right, like me personally, like where I draft Eckler as a top 3 pick, then is where it becomes, to me, those first round picks are all over the place, because then it becomes like, okay, so if you are going to take Eckler, right, then where do you put Derrick Henry, right? Where do you put, Joe Mixon and so forth, right? And then you start getting into the receivers that you're talking about. And, some people have receivers as, Cooper Kupp and Justin Jefferson, right? And then, then you start getting into, is anybody gonna, get Hill? Is anybody gonna get Devante? It's just so much. To me, that is the reason why, some people might not see those first round picks as valuable, and why maybe is the reason why Filter says, you know what, I'd rather go have 2 second round picks, right, instead of me having, that number 9 pick, because then at that point you just don't know, right? Like, it's just.
But once again, I mean, any of those players you named, but my whole point is outside of Eckler, because like I say, that's why I don't think he's in that category of picks for top 10. Do you really have a question mark about any of those players? That's what the original statement was, though, because you made it sound like you're questioning whether at pick 9 you're going to get a stud. Right, like that's the whole point of the first round. You need a guy that is going to be a guy. And I don't name any of those people I'm thinking of. Do any of them, are you unconfident that they're going to be a stud? Which is why, if you think about our league, Eckler won't go in the top 10 probably, because he's not guaranteed to be a stud.
Yeah,
right.
I understand.
But if we're talking about Derrick Henry, Jacobs, yeah, Jacob isn't. I don't know. My mind just went blank all the time.
Yeah, it's all right.
Notifications. But if you look at Henry, you look at Cook, you look at Kupp, Chase, and you look at all those guys. I mean, do you really think any of them are not going to be a stud? I mean, when you get into that second round, there's more mystery to it. So that's my point. Like, you're not named the second round players, and you're not going to be completely confident that they're going to be an absolute number 1. Like you're confident about the first round.
Yeah, no, I know. I think we just have to get into the players to be able to discuss this, because, we're just mentioning players. I think we just have to go to a top 10, top 12 players, and then you kind of see what I'm talking about. But either way, I have to head out. Right. So let's just let's do this. Let's plan to our next topic to be 12 picks, and then we'll get into that discussion.
All right, well, we'll plan something out on the side. Until next time, appreciate everybody for tuning in. Put your comments down below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and see you next time.